everybody, and thanks for tuning in to today's live session. Today with me, I have Matt. I don't know if you would call yourself a content marketing expert, but I'll call you that, Matt. And that's kind of the topic for our discussion today: how to utilize content in basically any part of your kind of sales cycle, and we'll try to drill into different ways of you being able to use content to drive business. I'll give the word to Matt in just 1 second. But as usual, just treat this as a conversation that you're a part of. So if you have any questions you would like to ask Matt or me, you just type it into the chat, and we'll keep an eye on the chat as we talk. But Matt, as we talked about just before we went live, what is kind of your claim to fame, or why can we trust you today a little bit when you speak about content?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm kind of like a weird sucker for effectiveness. I like marketing that works, which sounds like a crazy thing to say.
Me too.
Funny that, you know. But like my background was originally in e-commerce, and I actually got taught a really good lesson from my first marketing director. So we built a business called Slim's Detailing, which is still doing really well now. It's like a 7-figure e-commerce business for car care products. But for every level of investment into that business, be it a website, be it a CRO tool, be it marketing automation, whatever, he was like, you need to tell me what I'm getting back. What am I getting back for everything that I do, every paid media thing? So that taught me basically from my first job to be like, okay, everything I have to do has to basically make money. So e-commerce is easy because you actually said it just now, but it's instant gratification. You kind of know exactly what works and what doesn't in a very short window of time. I since then went into B2B. First of all, agency side. So I built a digital performance team at TMW. So that was a team of about 12, 13 people in SEO, search, paid media, all those different areas. And I left that role about 1.5 years ago to keep exploring marketing effectiveness. Then my current time now is built between two things. On one hand, I do consultancy for tech brands on performance across the whole funnel. And how much of your marketing influences revenue. And on the other half, I've got my own micro SaaS business called Rocky, which is a content feedback platform, which is addressing a very specific problem I think we have in content marketing measurement. So yeah, that's me. That's the background.
And that's great, Matt. And I really think we can just spend a little bit more time massaging that message about thinking about marketing as something that needs to have a tangible output. I think that was also for me personally when things started to connect about what marketing really is, was when a friend of mine called, particularly Bo, he was very like, you need to make money with marketing. And that once you start understanding that, you start thinking about differently about marketing, and just certain projects you probably stop doing because it's too unrealistic that you're gonna see a return on things. But how was it for you to being told this kind of thing where you need to show me the money of why we're doing these things?
From an e-com perspective, it kind of made complete sense. I mean, depending on your level of education going into your first jobs, like you kind of taught all the principles, like your SWOT analysis and all of those types of things. But e-com was quite a reality check. It's like, no, you have to literally make a spreadsheet right now of all your investments and then what they're giving us as a return. So it was really nice and transactional. The thing that I found crazy going into B2B was that lack of accountability around effectiveness and performance. And like, there's a bit of that is slightly against agencies, because agencies are often brought in to do a campaign of, a particular program or something. But I was always scratching my head at the end of it going, well, did it work? Like, did we make you guys any money? Because we're kind of here to make you guys some money. And if we're not doing it, I don't know why you would hire us again. So I found, appreciate we've got the complexity of longer deal cycles. We've got more stakeholders involved. You're dealing with, instead of a £10 e-commerce purchase, you might be selling £200,000 of software. very different, and it makes it a lot more complex, but it also makes it slightly more fun because you like got to figure out how we, that first bit, that top of the campaign, that first launch that we did, how did that influence revenue, and how can we prove it so that we can go again, we can get better investment in whatever tools, channels, techniques that we used to do it in the first place. So that's why I think B2B is more fun.
And sometimes painful as well, but also fun.
Yeah, 100%.
If we start then looking at like what a sales funnel is, or how do you, when you talk with your clients, how do you typically talk about this content funnel or like sales funnel or whatever? What are the kind of the stages that you would typically help them define?
Yeah, I think that the first stage is essentially all the behavior that happens well away from your website. So if you were to, everyone's got their own version of a funnel, but I would essentially look at what is your total addressable market. The first key thing is who is your audience? How large is that audience? Is it 100,000 people, 200,000 people that you could be influencing? And then essentially I break down which channels are you active in at this point? Are you running PR campaigns? Are you running social media campaigns? Are you running search campaigns? What does that look like? And then kind of just breaking down each one of those to understand. I mean, they kind of all do the same thing. How effectively do you reach your TAM? How effectively do you influence them and engage them? And every platform has a slightly different metric that we can draw on to understand that. So, let's take social media. Are we getting high amounts of comments, post likes, and things like that? All of that is really good for things like brand recall. There's really good studies as well, which show, the more someone is actually engaged with a company online, regardless if they've gone anywhere near your website, this is helping brand recall. They're going to remember you. They might not be ready to buy now, but they really like that funny video you did, or they really engage with a poll you did or something like that. These are all positive brand, conditioning things that are happening. And then it just keeps filtering down that funnel into obvious things like search. How does this translate into, my favorite thing to look at is how does this translate into, first of all, non-branded search terms? How effective is your SEO around the topic, the subject area? But then how effective are you at influencing brand search? Because brand search is generally someone who has done their homework elsewhere. They might have read about you in a PR publication, social media, it might be a Reddit group, something like that. The key thing is they know about you and they're like, okay, I need to find out about brand X, whatever it may be. And that number's a huge one to keep an eye on, because this is how good you are, without getting into attribution and all that. This is how good you are at influencing your audience well away from your website. So before I even get anywhere near website and attribution modeling,
I can't believe you're saying all this without using any buzzwords for it, man.
Sorry,
because we're using so many marketing acronyms or buzzwords here.
Yeah, I'm trying to avoid it.
It's nice. But I don't know if you've seen it, but particularly the LinkedIn ads team has been trying to push these related to this target addressable market with like 5%, only the 5% are in market right now. And the rest of that addressable market is the 95% who's actually not actively buying right now or don't have a budget available for it. And these are essentially the people we're trying to plant a lot of seeds with while they're not actually actively buying, but through PR, communication on social platforms, etc. What would you call it, brand recall? Like we start to make them aware about us so that when they get a new budget, when they change company, etc., we are positioned as that tool that they would pick should they need a tool like what we do.
Yeah, and that makes complete sense, because essentially what we're doing at that stage of the funnel and looking at all that content, regardless of channel, is establishing how good the brand is doing its job. Like, regardless if people are in market or not, long term, you need to be that consistent, like with a leader in this category.
Yeah.
So this is really good. Again, you could go into social listening and things like that and understand share of voice, sentiment, and kind of the specific qualitative insights as well as to perception.
What should we call that stage?
What should we call it?
The classic is probably top funnel or something like that.
I kind of consider it that, like the top of the top of the funnel. You know what I mean? Because it's the first of all, PR and things like that is significantly harder to measure than any other channel.
Yeah.
But we have to try and make an understanding of what we're doing, because there's huge investment that goes there. And I dread to think how difficult it is for PR agencies to go, please give us another 100, 200 grand. I promise you this publication is really going to help. And you're like, I need something tangible that proves this is good money for us.
Yeah. And then maybe particularly this year where money has been fewer in the investment world. So they're probably been on the chopping board for the budgets at the moment.
Definitely.
Cool. Okay, so top funnel. That's it. What is the kind of the next stages and activities that are there?
Essentially, the next thing that I'd really look at is essentially your website behavior. So there's kind of a couple of different funnels that you could start to build out here. I'm essentially looking at the channels that have driven the most high intent users. You've got high intent users and you've kind of got passive users. So passive users are people who might have come in on kind of broader SEO terms like long tail. They might be still searching the subject area and you just happen to be positioned as the best search result on that thing.
Yeah.
They're not ready to buy. They're researching, they're self-serving and educating themselves. The other strand that I'm really fascinated by is high intent. So people who are coming in direct, people who are using branded search terms. And like there's a whole attribution story that I look at as well after this, but I'm talking probably last touch at this point.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated to see what their journey is to go and convert. And this is where you can start to tune the engine a little bit around like conversion rate optimization. Like what are the points that you use to convert high intent? Is it a book a demo? Is it contact us forms? Is it to your peril gated content? Because it doesn't work as well as it used to. Like I can say that. And then it's really understanding what that website behavior is and how you're kind of essentially funneling those different types of persona on that journey.
And just out of curiosity, what is typically, or just is there any particular tactic there that you kind of prefer? Demo calls, the sign-ups, download ebooks, etc.
Yeah. So I'll give you an example from a piece of work I did with a tech brand last year. I kind of had a hypothesis that the gated content stuff wasn't driving high intent leads. And there's a lot of like influence from, you know, the Chris Walkers of this world and everything they've done with Refined Labs. I kind of wanted to put it to the point and go, is this real? And it makes sense. The logic of it makes sense, but I was like, I'm going to see if it actually is real. So we basically split their funnel out and go, let's look at all of your conversion points and then what their onward journey is from there. So everyone who fills out a gated form, how many of them go into revenue? How many of them turn into money makers? And then everyone who books a demo, everyone who does the contact us form, what's their journey to revenue? The split was wild. It was genuinely wild. And
I have such a hard time that you can become famous for saying split the funnel, because like, what were these marketers doing before? Were they just handing ebooks to the salespeople the same way as they were handing demo calls to them, or?
Yeah, well, every lead ended up being classified as the same thing. They're all technically MQLs, but to give you the specific numbers, I think everyone who filled out gated content, I think they converted to opportunity and revenue at something like 4% or 3 or 4%. Book a demo at 17, 18%. Wildly different. But this is a way of turning things on their head and going, well, hang on a minute, this is where we're putting all our paid media into gated content. We're putting huge investment and trying to like convert another 2% here or 1% there for very slim reward at the bottom of the funnel.
I think that lead number should just stay in the marketing department and not go anywhere else in the company. And then you can talk about how many demo calls you help source, because that's actually something that actually represents value for your business.
Yeah, definitely.
I've been running all sorts of lead form ads on LinkedIn and experienced the same thing. If you go very soft, very far away from something that is related to buying, like here's an ad tactic that works. Then all the leads we got through that were a million miles away from the sales funnel.
Yeah. Can I give you one example where I would still use gated content though?
Yes, do.
I would still use it around high value ABM.
Yeah.
The reason for that, and I'm going to plug Dream Data in this as well because it makes sense in some ways. Because if you're trying to close an account that could be worth high 6 figures, 7 figures, and you've got a dedicated sales team involved, you've got dedicated marketers, actually gathering more account information on a specific contacts, if you kind of form out that stakeholder unit, the decision-making group,
Yeah.
there's still value in that. Even if like ignore the kind of cost per lead on it, it's still quite valuable to have that in a database, because then with using Dream Data, I can start seeing if they come in and out of the website, and I can start to understand when their intent increases or decreases, because I know what content they're reading, I know what solutions they're looking at, and if I'm driving paid ads into that for the big reward at the end of the day, I don't mind that. I don't mind if I've had to give them a piece of content and get a form fill as much, because I know I've got a long game to play here. When they're in market, when their contract expires, whatever it may be,
Yeah.
I'm ready with proper intent data, not some sort of third-party purchase thing that tells me they might be in market. I can tell you if they're in market for my company right now.
Yeah, I think the whole gated versus not gated discussion becomes a bit too kind of black and white sometimes, because I think we almost keep anything open on our website, but I might package some of the stuff into an ebook and then use as a gated piece for paid advertisement. But if you just came to our website, it would be completely open. Okay, so we're working our way through the funnel. So that was the top funnel on platforms and PR, and then there's once you start browsing the website. And what is kind of in the bottom of this funnel then?
Essentially, it's how we're optimizing to get to revenue as quick as we can, and what's the content that's influencing the most. So I'd be taking a big interest in which pages are my money making pages. Are there particular pages that have a higher level of conversion of people who then go on to book a demo, or tend to progress through the funnel quicker? And again, like tools like Dream Data are perfect for that. I can tell you where my money making content is, and I would use that as a way of prioritizing any optimization. If I'm getting high traffic volumes to a solutions page that no one converts from, that's a red flag for me that I want to go and look at. And conversely, the other way around, if someone converts really well, I want to find out why. So I might even get qualitative data with feedback tools and things like that at that point to try and understand that, I've only got numbers to go on, and numbers tend to lead to guesswork and kind of false hypothesis sometimes. So I try and validate that with some qual insights. But then the key thing there is that, as particularly from some of the clients I work with, it's how effective our email marketing is through the rest of the journey, from traditionally what we would call an MQL to SQL opportunity and revenue. So how good are we at maintaining the comms, delivering that traditional bottom of the funnel content? So case studies, relevant examples of similar customers in that particular space for that audience, and solution guides. Like that is still a relevant thing. Like marketing automation still has a huge role to play. And even looking at the data of some of the users we work with, you can see how effective that is at continuing to influence people as they get closer towards converting with sales. Webinars as well actually still play a huge role in that space, because you're engaged with the brand. You want to know how the tool works, the product works, and those long form bits of content are so valuable still at the bottom of the funnel.
I really like marketers. The best thing you can, I think, one of the best things you can learn in B2B marketing is that you need to look beyond that first conversion and stare at the account all the way through, at least for it to hit the sales pipeline, because from that first ebook download until the sales pipeline, there's a long way to go still. And like, for example, as you say, monitoring the automations that you're sending out. Are you like, if you have like a drip of 5 emails, which emails should you be sending? Do you know these people well enough to be able to put together a meaningful sequence? And what are you typically doing? Maybe that's a good segue to talk a little bit about what are you doing to kind of do research to understand whatever client you have, what are their customers interested in, kind of how do you define an ideal customer, and how do you develop content that would work for these?
Yeah. So it's an interesting one, because I essentially try and rely on lots of different feedback loops at this point. So the first thing I do, I'll probably separate this into two parts. One is external data, one is owned data.
Yeah.
External data, I would certainly tap into social listening a lot. Regardless of the audience size, not everyone's going to have.
Could you just define social listening, Matt, just for the people listening and me as well? Yeah.
So I'd look at tools that essentially allow me to understand what sort of conversations might be being had around the topic in places like Reddit, Twitter, or X, whatever it's called now.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of tools as well that are scraping things like LinkedIn at a very light level, just to understand what the top line conversation is around those areas. And if you start to narrow that into brand terms as well, you can get into specifics as to what perception of the brand looks like. Again, another example was from a brand I worked with last year who target corporate organizations only, and they're about to pivot to go into a mid-market role.
Yeah.
But when you look at the social listening, everyone talks about them as, oh, they're brilliant, but they're corp.
Yeah.
And that's a huge messaging twist that they've got to start to understand and start working on, because if you start advertising that to a mid-market company, they go, well, that's not for us, that's for the big boys.
Yeah.
So really valuable data about how you're being talked about outside of that. The rest of the funnel, like there is obviously, with social listening, you should be picking up a lot of social there, and then you're essentially looking at feedback loops as you get lower into the funnel. So I still advocate for very light surveying tools on your website. Like I'm a huge fan of something like Winter for messaging testing, which makes complete sense.
No, I haven't tried it, but I looked at it a few times.
Yeah, it's kind of like the scary button to press. Like, is everyone going to say they hate me, and do I need to get rid of everything? But it is really insightful. I've done it a couple of times. But equally, there's no reason you stopping doing that on an ongoing basis with a light survey tool on key money-making pages, where you might just be saying, did this content make sense? Did this resonate? And that's a little bit of what Rocky does as well for my own side business. Is this content resonating with you? Because it gives you clear optimization points. Analytics doesn't tell you the answer. It gives you points at things that might be working. But qualitative gives you the answer as to why, good or bad. So I found that really effective. And then probably the key thing there is then getting feedback loops with sales right at the bottom of the funnel, understanding what the most common customer challenges are, what are the biggest questions they have about the product and the solution, and then really making content that is tailored around how we solve problems for them. So there's I've probably covered a few things there, but there's lots of stuff you can use to help with messaging and positioning. But for content, and specifically how do you cater for specific audiences, I'd really tap into sales teams. They're the ones who are there to close the deals and make the money, and they're the ones who deal with the objections. And if we can solve those objections much higher in the funnel with our marketing content, when we're making a much better deal for the sales teams.
Yeah, I typically advocate for at least one person from marketing always sitting in on the weekly sales meetings to hear what's being talked about, because the sales team will always think on mostly think about one-to-one solutions. Like, you ask me a question, I give you the answer. But as a marketer, we listen differently. We listen for, somebody said that. Is there a good one-to-many solution to addressing this problem? So the sales team there can be a massive resource for spotting these things that the customers will be talking about. So do go to the sales team, even if you're just in content. Like, ask, can I sit in on the sales meetings to listen to what you guys are talking about? So maybe I can help spot things that we can address in a one-to-many fashion.
Makes sense, yeah.
Cool. What else should we go into? So we've kind of established this funnel. How do you then become? Maybe a good question is, once you start caring about content and it becomes a project in your organization, how do you actually make sure that a bet on content becomes successful? And then define success afterwards, but like, how do you succeed with a play like this?
So the thing that's like really fascinating at the moment is like B2B marketing has an obsession with endlessly making content and then never understanding what worked. And that's kind of a problem because like we sort of never like take stock of what works. And I think there needs to be a different obsession. The obsession needs to be around measurement and effectiveness and using that to fuel how you go forward further on. So like the thing that we're really good at is getting lots of insights at the start of a program, like, you know, audiences, personas, their preferences, challenges that we need to solve, creating a big content plan across the whole funnel. We love doing it. We're marketers, like, let's go being creative. What's the best way of telling this story?
Yeah.
Then I'd really advocate for like, well, you need really good, robust mechanisms in place to understand, like, did it actually work? And it's a big move away from vanity metrics. Like, I'm going to give you examples. Like I got lots of views. I got lots of, I don't know, traffic to a web page. There's so many variables that could have influenced that. Your SEO team might be incredible and they got it there, but it doesn't mean the content necessarily resonated. You might have had a low dwell time. You could use tools like my own to understand if it actually resonated and you know, solve the problem of the query of that user.
Yeah.
So you need things in place in the middle to understand, is this working? And that could be social listening. It could be monitoring, you know, the comments that are coming through and the engagement that you're getting. There's lots of tools you can use for websites and understanding how good that content is as well. But that gives you an edge where you can optimize if things aren't working. Yeah. So if you're halfway through a campaign and you're going, do you know what, this isn't resonating, you know, there's so many global changes affecting us at the moment. Yeah. Budgets being cut, you know, different technologies being adopted at a rapid pace. We could be telling a story that's 6 months out of date, and a couple of bits of feedback from your audience to say, like, this isn't interesting or relevant anymore, could be all you need to go, do you know what, we need to pivot because the world is changing a lot quicker than it used to be. Yeah. Rather than just setting off another campaign and hoping it works or chasing more vanity metrics with more content. Yeah. We're kind of in a crazy place at the moment with that.
If we sort of, I think it's typically can be good to talk about like leading indicators and then lagging indicators. If you were to say a few of each for content, what are the things that you typically try to steer your clients to talk about?
Yeah, so I'd look at it in 3 stages because every platform we're on is kind of doing the same thing. So the first thing is reach. How well are we reaching the TAM, like the total addressable market? Yeah. That's the big thing, is that shows how effectively we're even getting the message in front of people. The second one is how well are we actually engaging them? So it's all very well just delivering loads of ebooks to the market and it being viewed by people, but like, is it driving a lot of comments? Is it driving feedback? Yeah. Are we kind of fueling the social platforms as well? Because social platforms love high engaging content that, you know, that people love, and they will continue to serve it, which essentially means we're helping our reach metric as well. Yeah. So there's those two. And then the third part is how much are we actually influencing people to do what we want them to do? Yeah. So is this driving lots of high intent site traffic? Is this driving people to convert on our high intent, like money making pages on the website? So there's really like 3 quite basic, like fundamentals, like that ignore so many of the other kind of like middle metrics. Like, are we reaching them? Are we engaging them? And do they go and visit our site and really do the thing that we want, which is hopefully book demos and stuff like that.
I agree. Okay, maybe so last question to touch could be to how do we kind of justify spend on content, because it's like you come from e-commerce, and then when you buy a click on Google Ads, you would, as you said before, like within 24 hours, you know whether that click yielded a purchase right there. Whereas content can be kind of a very slow discipline sometimes. And if you're in B2B, there's sometimes, if the content is the first touch, then it might be 6 to 12 months before you see revenue coming out of it. So you must run into this discussion or like question sometimes that how do we know whether it's worth it? How do we defend saying we need a budget for this project?
Yeah, it is really tough because you can't just go, oh no, that PR article that made us 10 grand. there's no linear journey anymore. It doesn't exist.
No, absolutely.
So it is a challenge. I completely understand how difficult that is, and I don't think there's a perfect formula yet. But the way I would approach it to have that conversation is to do two things and go, can we look at how well we're doing at brand content, and then how well we're influencing pipeline with attribution modeling and tools like that. So with the brand content, I go back to those values and go, look, we're, I don't know, leaders in our marketplace, in our whatever the sector is. We're creating the most share of voice. We're reaching the most people, and we're driving the highest engagement and conversation. And we're banking on that service in the long term. It's there to mean we don't have to constantly throw money at paid advertising in the long term.
Yeah.
To back that up, I would have a tool like Dream Data to go, I need to understand how those dots start to convert. So if someone saw us on G2 a year ago, if someone saw us on LinkedIn and engaged with an ad, and then I can draw the little dots and go, do you know what? They came back, and then they filled out that book a demo form, and they converted. They're not going to do it in 1 step or 2 steps. It just doesn't happen anymore.
No.
I need a tool that joins the dots from brand to revenue, and like you guys do it perfectly, because I can start to go, well, I know which content made money. I know which content to optimize that didn't make money off the back of it. But you can never, it's impossible to try and measure in an individual piece, because you will learn nothing. You need to look at the big picture of it all.
Yeah, and I probably, hearing the things you say here also says something about you need to kind of almost like rally the company around that this is worth doing. Or like, at least if you're the marketing leader, then you need to make sure that your peers in the company, or the CEO or CFO, kind of understands your reasoning for why this is necessary. Look, it's gonna take time, but this is the benefits we're looking for. These are the activities that we're gonna do, and I'll come back to you in 6 months and tell you that if we should stop this, I'll be the first one to say it. Or like that proactive conversation. I think you really, if you want to bet on a discipline like this, you need to kind of also lead that conversation or education even of those people.
Yeah, it's so important, because the world has changed and the buyer has changed. Like COVID changed buyer behavior overnight, so that it's mostly digital led. It's multi-touch. It's like there's also a big generational shift. So like a lot of the senior leaders were baby boomers. Most of them have decided to just move into retirement. So Gen X is generally the dominant decision maker.
Yeah.
Millennials are not far behind, which is a terrifying prospect that I don't want to think about.
Yeah.
And then, and we have different buyer behavior. Like as a millennial, I was like, I'm not going to go and read gated content and start buying things.
No.
That's mental. That doesn't make any sense. But like the buyer behavior has changed dramatically. So there's an education piece to senior management and to sales teams to go, well, we have to behave differently. We have to focus on driving continuous brand awareness, because we know sales cycles are longer. We know it's harder. We know everything's more competitive.
Yeah.
We have to dominate at the top of the funnel to be effective in the long term. Those are where your big wins will be. And there are different ways of cutting into that, which is probably another podcast. But yeah, there are ways of cutting into that and showing proof points of old world versus new world, and going, look, the numbers don't lie.
I think you like there's a I see more and more of these posts as well about how little time people spend in front of salespeople nowadays, and they like 50% of the customer journey is done before you speak to a salesperson, or 60 or 70 or 80%, and it's because we're so used to finding the information ourselves that it's like, frankly, untrustworthy that one salesperson should have all the answers. You go to G2, go to your friends, go to all sorts of places on the internet, and if your organization is not wired to have a massive content output, you're not kind of putting your tickets in this like research lottery in some sense.
There's a really good example there as well with YouTube content. Like one of the brands I work with, their most viewed and engaged with YouTube content is product videos that were kind of lazily like, oh, we've released a new feature. It didn't have a big marketing spiel, like, you know, all the glamorous images and like, this is going to change the world and blah, blah, blah. We're changing connectivity, whatever the weird thing is that we do at the top of the funnel sometimes. It was just literally screenshots and demo videos of here's how the buttons work. Here's how you find the menu. Those are the most engaged bits of content, because there's active users who are like, I want to use this. I just want to know how it all works. They're kind of doing their own product demo.
Yeah.
And they're getting the engagement on it. Like, they were ready by the time they booked a demo. They were like, I know what the product does.
Yeah.
I'm ready to go. I just want to check the price.
That's pretty much when I book a demo as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome, Matt. This has been super awesome. You can see we think a lot alike on the content component. So if we're wrong and you're watching this later, just make sure to tell us. If people want to know more about you, or either your consultancy business, or maybe just do like the shortest of pitch for Rocky as well, then people know what to get in touch with. Then shoot.
Yeah. So Rocky's content feedback platform, the problem we're solving is content measurement on websites is hard. It's like our research basically showed we kind of guess. We look at analytics numbers and we guess if it worked or not, which isn't the right way of doing it. And we found the solution, which is actually taking like customer ratings, feedback, and understanding what they really think, what they, you know, does the content resonate? How could it be better? And we blend it with analytics data. So you've got all the traditional numbers there going, you know, your high traffic and the high performers, the best searchable terms. And then does the content actually do its job? Does it resonate with the audience? It's simple as that. So our website is rocky.io, but I'm very active on LinkedIn. So please do add me and connect. That would be cool.
Wonderful, wonderful, Matt. Thank you so much for your time today and to discuss this content marketing, which is a favorite topic of mine as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, people do reach out to and connect with Matt, and thanks a lot for following us.